Morning everyone, welcome to Hull. Thank you very much for coming to this workshop today, which is shared between the Cresting project and the Chartered Institution of Waste Management, both of which I will say a little bit about to set the scene for you. So Cresting is a Marie Skłodowska-Curie innovative training network funded by the European Union Horizon 2020 program. I'll say a little bit more about this, so the actual content of the research that we'll be doing shortly, but just to briefly explain the type of award that it is. There are 15 people in the audience who are early stage researchers who will be working on PhDs. As part of Cresting, they're distributed between 8 different European universities in 6 different countries. The supervisors are here as well, and some of whom you'll be seeing shortly explaining different parts of the project. It's a 4-year project overall. The ESRs have 3 years to do their research. We're already 9 months into the project. There's an awful lot of organisation that goes alongside these European fundings. So it's very exciting now to reach the point where we have a pause from the organisation and we can start the work of the project. So today's a very important moment in that regard. It's the first one of the 6 workshops that we'll be having at the various universities across the lifetime of the project. So the Chartered Institution of Waste Management is the professional body for people who work in industries and organisations related to what has been known as waste management. Of course, we're kind of moving to a stage where we might want to get away from using the word waste and think about resources and residues and so forth, but this is the sort of history that we're following along from. So there's some 5,000 members currently of the CIWM who work in the waste industry and consultancy or for local authorities, or they might be in the Environment Agency or indeed part of national bodies. And also there's an academic component as well. So you can see the sort of the mission statement of the CIWM, public benefit, art and science of waste management worldwide, about education, protection of public health, preservation of the environment. So some lofty goals that we might add circular economy onto. There's various national bodies, part of the CIWM, who work on training and research relating to waste. It's affiliated to the International Solid Waste Association that some of our visitors from Europe might be familiar with. Most important for today, CIWM is divided up into regional centres. So we're here as an open meeting of the North East Regional Centre of the CIWM, and I'm co-opted onto that body as its sort of academic representative. So I think I'm just about able to welcome you here on behalf of the CIWM as well as of Cresting. And the regional centre, part of its tradition is to have its open meetings such as this, today organised around the theme of circular economy, which are open to anyone and are not charged for the privileges coming along to meetings. So just a little advert there for the North East Regional Centre. And our sponsor for the day, whom we kindly thank for lunch, which will be along in due course, the Energy and Environment Institute at the University of Hull. So this is a multidisciplinary research institute. There's people doing all manner of different types of research, many of them interested in sediment flows, rivers, things related to how the Earth systems respond to climate change, for example, as well as the social implications of some of the responses that we need to make as a society. Particular theme at the moment is around plastic pollution and microplastics, how microplastics are now found all around the globe, including in parts of Antarctica where we might have thought they weren't able to get that far, but they have been found there. And you can sign up for the University of Hull's Plastic Pledge and promise that you'll reduce your use of disposable plastics in some way. So I'll leave you to think about what your pledge might be. Okay, so that's sort of the background or the funding or context of why we're here. This is more the actual business of why we need a circular economy. We want to get away, sorry, can you see from scenes like this of waste being disposed of in landfill, which the UK for many years was the primary route for waste disposal. We have substantially moved away from that now, gone from something like 90% to less than 50% of our waste going into landfill. But still, it's not a pretty sight, and there's all kinds of implications around that, which is the purpose of the circular economy to move away from. Nevertheless, we might note that this is an organised context. This waste is in a landfill which is being managed in some way to capture the leachate and gas emissions that may come from the waste. But not all waste that's generated is captured by this system of disposal. This, I gather, is somewhere near Los Angeles, a very attractive feature in a river there, a mound of plastic bottles that have washed up on the shore. So clearly that is a situation that needs more urgent treatment. And here, I think just about picked the fish out in the middle of that picture, swimming through a sea of plastic pollution. So we can see that there are some quite serious problems that need to be addressed, and I might argue that this one is even more serious. So there are parts of the world where waste management hasn't even reached the sort of level of health and safety, let's say, and awareness of social issues that we have reached in the European Union. Now, this is a formal landfill, but there are people there who have access to it and indeed may partly rely for their social well-being on the materials that they can capture and recycle from this. And in looking at this picture, I was horrified to see that several hundred people died last year from landslides within landfills. So it's not something that was going to be solved very easily, but there are all manner of situations that we need to remember that we're living in a relatively sort of sanitized environment, I think, within a relatively rich country. So, having depressed us all slightly with the need for the circular economy, I'll move on to the programme of how we're going to talk about it today. I guess I've done the first part. I'll say a little bit more about the research that's being done within Cresting. Then each of the 5 work package leaders will give a brief introduction to their work package. I'm afraid you get to see me again at that point. One of the important features or the challenges of setting up a circular economy is that you need to find a way of collaborating between people from many different walks of life, or many different types of organisations, both governmental, non-governmental, all manner of companies involved in making, distributing and disposing of products. So part of what we're hoping to achieve today is starting a dialogue between people from different backgrounds. Most of the people in the audience are academic, but we're very grateful and pleased to have people here from outside academia who will be sharing their perspectives. So you can see the order of play, as it were. Finishing out importantly with tea at around about 3:30 this afternoon. Just for a change, it's me again now. I get to introduce the circular economy and the research that we're doing within it. So I've used the word many times, but what is the circular economy? What do we mean by that? Hopefully we'll see through the day that maybe different people might mean slightly different things. But I'm standing here partly as a representative of the European Union. I'm going to use their definition to just check that we're all maybe thinking vaguely along the same lines. So the circular economy is about preserving the value of products, materials and resources maintained in the economy for as long as possible, and minimising the generation of waste. So the purposes that this is hoping to achieve is to reduce carbon emissions. Also, there's a sort of a resource security message so that we can use the resources that we've already got within Europe rather than just burying them, forgetting about them, and then having to import others perhaps from outside. And there's also an assumption, at least, that being more circular brings economic competitiveness. So this is some of the sort of snapshot of the European Union thinking behind this. Already there are many different ideas about what a circular economy might look like. I believe there's more than 100 definitions that you can find in the academic literature. We might want to think about that as we go through how different they are, what the implications are, but it's a matter of debate at the minute. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is live within the Earth's limits so that we rely as far as possible on renewable resources or use non-renewable resources within the limits of our ability to recycle and regenerate them. And as I mentioned already, to move towards this does involve collaboration between many different types of organisations. Now, the circular economy, although the term is relatively new, the policies behind it have been developing in the European Union and the member states, and of course independently in other parts of the world, over the last several decades. So in some ways we might go back to the first waste framework directive in 1975, which has been updated. I think there's a 2018 version. So the sort of starting point of this is to recover resources to keep waste out of landfill. There's also, of course, a whole set of directives around environmental protection that guide the way companies can operate. There's policies in place to incentivize the reduction of the amount of waste that's produced by charging, for example, by putting it into landfill, and by keeping waste out of landfill, that creates a supply of residues that could be used for other activities. There's other sets of regulations around promoting the use of renewable energy, and more, well, old and new. A lot of these things have had earlier incarnations that have been redeveloped slightly now. So the producer responsibility directives like packaging and the end-of-life vehicle directive have been around now, I can say, for decades, that aim to incentivize companies to think about designing for the environment, but were not particularly successful in doing that. So other priorities were put more highly than the design aspect. But more recently we have the Eco-Design Directive for energy use in products, and now I think that is being reformed to look more directly at materials. So we're building on a sort of a large body of regulations and practice that have been around for some time and trying to sort of hone those towards a more circular approach. And academics, of course, have been keenly researching this under different names, industrial ecology, industrial symbiosis, for some time already. Over the last couple of years, when the term circular economy has become the sort of the fashionable one to use, many papers have appeared, something like 2,000, I think, over the last couple of years. So for those of you starting your PhDs, you've got quite a bit of reading to get through, but fortunately you can probably be slightly selective, I would suggest, in doing that. And in fact, looking at these, we can see that it's a boom time for publishers in the academic world. Elsevier seems to be doing quite nicely from the circular economy. But these papers, some of them are coming from more technical aspects of how can we match up different supplies of inputs and outputs, modelling, thinking about how things could look like. There's a general assumption here that we're moving in the right direction. How can we make it happen more efficiently or more quickly? Cresting project is about taking a slight step back from that to understanding what's happening and the different contexts that it fits in around the world, with the assumption that perhaps by understanding what's going on and how different things may be needed, different forms of collaboration in different places, that we can then use that understanding to help move towards what might be a genuinely sustainable circular economy. So to just list briefly sort of the major question addressed by each work package, or actually the major questions addressed by the project as a whole, this would be. So to look at to what extent public and private sector bodies might already be engaged in circular economy practices without necessarily realising that that's what we call what they are doing. An important question, number 2, to what extent do the practices that are developing for the circular economy match the aspirations? So most of the definitions you'll see of the circular economy, particularly from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, or what we'd like to end up with in some years' time, but it's worth pausing to have a look around and see if what we're getting in how that corresponds to what we thought we would like to get. How can what's happening now, practices of circular economy, be shared between different geographic and industry contexts? What works in one place may not be what works exactly in another place, but there might still be lessons you can take from it. How can we measure the sustainability, which means the social, economic and environmental impacts of circular economy practices that are emerging? How do we know that we're being circular and what are the implications of that? How sustainable are developing practices of the circular economy? So remembering that sustainable has got these different aspects to it, so it's not just about protecting the environment, it's about being economically and socially equitable in some sense. Maybe the sustainability varies depending on whether we're looking at local networks or are we measuring at the national scale or even the global scale. I don't have answers at present, but come back in about 3.5 years' time and we'll have some answers to some of these questions and probably a list of new questions that have emerged in the meantime.